Well, Neil, thanks for taking a few minutes to talk with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for
Absolutely.
having me.
Absolutely. So Inheritance, I'm fascinated by the way you decided to shoot this, guerrilla style on an iPhone, but let's talk about where the idea first came from for this movie.
Well, the idea originally came from during like the beginning of COVID, where most directors were like, well, we shoot two people in a room or two people in a forest or something like that. And my instinct was the opposite. I was like, oh, I want to go around the world. I want to see like what the new normal is. I read a New York Times article about this guy traveling across the land. And I was like, I want to see that, these empty
Hmm.
cities. And so, but I wanted to do it not as a documentary, but as a narrative. And I came up with this story along with a guy named Olin Steinhauer, who's a spy novelist. And you know, and the only way to do it really would be, you couldn't go in with a film crew, certainly not during COVID. And plus, when you go in with a film crew, you disrupt everything. Everybody ends up looking at you. So I thought, well, the way to do this would be to shoot it on an iPhone. So eventually, it's hard to get a movie made and it takes forever and all that stuff. And so things had changed a little bit, opened up a little bit, but I still thought that the story was valid. And I still thought that the technique was valid to do it on an iPhone, to kind of like let the world happen around us rather than impose ourselves on the world. And so to me, I wanted to use the iPhone not as a gimmick. There's been other iPhone films made, and sometimes
Yeah.
it gets a little bit gimmicky, not merely as a substitute for a film camera, but rather to get access. So I could walk through a crowded Cairo market and nobody would look at us because everybody's got their phone and doing social media and things like that. And so then I could have that flow of people around us and nobody would look.
So
I
to do
also,
that, you would
yeah,
have to basically, not do it, I mean, probably not at all have, sets and rehearsals and things like that. You must have been doing them all on the fly.
we did it. Well, we did do rehearsals before we went out. We kind of like mapped out sort of what it would be in different places. No sets, just letting it, going out into the world, onto the street, into that market. We shot on real planes, in flight dialogue scenes, stolen, without permission. Um, and with people kind of loading into the flight, like going down the
Yeah.
aisle, and then they're talking as they've sat down, and um, and it all has uh, a really you are there feel to it, and that it has an exciting energy, which is quite rare, and special, and that's what I was looking for, and in a way, what you get, as I said, there's other movies that have been shot on iPhones, but this one is one, the first movie that's shot on an iPhone that is an international thriller, that
Hmm.
is a big movie. The others are sort of, they're sort of smaller. They take
Yeah.
place in a neighborhood or something like that, and they're nice movies. But this one is the first iPhone movie that has the scope of a grand international movie and that has the, excitement of an international thriller.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think I really liked about it is that it feels very immediate and urgent and like in the moment. Um, and because it's a movie where Phoebe's character is kind of she's always being knocked off balance.
Yeah.
The fact that the surroundings are natural and unpredictable, I think you can kind of see it in the performance.
Totally. It's completely real. And it's interesting because in order to be under the radar, it meant that we couldn't do, and nor did I want to do, you couldn't do sort of normal conventional film language. You couldn't do like a wide shot and then an over the shoulder shot and then a close up and then turn around and do the same thing on the other side. Instead, we had this kind of this flow, this sort of caught live feel to it. And which was great and appropriate for being in a real place. But and it changed the look of the movie, but more interestingly, it changed how the actors acted. So to your
Hmm.
question, it it meant they always had to be on. Anything was possible at any time. Somebody might bump into them and they needed to stay in character. Somebody might ask them for directions on the street. They were to stay in character. even though the movie's tightly scripted, it's a thriller. So it's all, it needs all those puzzle pieces in place to make the thriller pay off.
Yeah.
Yet still it has this kind of loose um, feel, in the world, on the street or wherever we are.
It's funny because she's been talking recently about a scene that because I literally just watched it maybe a couple of hours ago, getting ready for this interview, and there's a scene in there where she kind of in the moment just kind of takes something from a store, and she just but they just did an interview with her where she talks about that was something that she just did spur of the moment, and she could have been caught, which would
Well,
have been. I mean, of all the things
I
that
don't
could
want
all the
to. I mean,
craziness.
was she talking about the sunglasses?
Yes.
Well, to be in all fairness, that was completely scripted that she did it, but it wasn't fake. It was in
Right.
the script, but she went in there without
Did it for
permission.
real.
We did not have permission. We were at JFK. We took the filmmakers took the trip that she took. So we were at JFK. If she was going to get on a plane and fly to Egypt, then we were on that plane. She's at JFK. She's walking through the concourse. It was in the script. She goes into this high-end accessories and jewelry store. And I had sort of directed her and sort of taught her how she wasn't just going to grab it and run,
Yeah.
how to kind of like do it in a very kind of like easy, don't draw any attention to yourself way of stealing those sunglasses. But she really stole them. She
Yeah.
stole them and walked out of them with them. And then later, we just quietly put them back and nobody ever knew the difference. But
It's
but
so
it was
funny when I was
hairy, and I
watching
think it was
it.
very, nerve-wracking for her.
It's funny when I was watching it, I was like, she looked like she really stole those. Like she had this
She
look on her
did.
face, like and
She did
I was
steal
just
them.
kind of it was
She
before I knew
stole
anything about the way you shot the movie, so which is
She
like, wow.
she stole them, and she stole that liquor bottle out of that store, and she stole that like a little sphinx at the
Wow.
souvenir stand, and she
What
she
we
did
only
all.
got a couple minutes left, Neil, but what are you hoping people take away from Inheritance? I had a blast with this. It reminded me of a lot of the espionage films that I always like. The energy of it I really enjoy too. But
Well,
what are you
I
hoping people get from Inheritance?
well, I think one, I hope they go on a wild ride that's fun and feels different, and that they go around the world with us. And um, I think the story asks, who are we as individuals in the world at this moment? What are we responsible? Who are we accountable for beyond ourselves? Sam has the answers to all of this. He's the black sheep. He's the thief. Is that who she is? Or is
Right.
she her mother's a saint? Is that who she is? But she's left less comfortable with that. Um, and so to me, that's the inheritance of like, who are you? Um, but in a broader sense of like, who are we in the world? As Americans, who are we in the world? Are we leaders? Are we loners? Are we activists? Are we isolationists? And I think she's dealing with that throughout. She talks to that woman on the train, like, well, if we try to help, don't we just fuck it all up? Maybe, but if you don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's she's a privileged, powerful person, and with power comes responsibility, but also burden, and so many of us feel that way. So that's kind of what it's about to me.
Well, Neil, thanks a lot for your time, man. Talking with Inheritance with me. The movie comes out on January 24th. I wish you the best of luck with it, man. Thank you a lot.
Thank you so much. Thanks for talking.
All right, thanks. Thanks for checking out the show. If you like what we're laying down, please subscribe to our channel and click the bell to receive notifications for all of our latest stuff.